From Pocketnow.com, this is Pocketnow Weekly.
Hello, and welcome to episode 029 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week podcast from Pocketnow.com where we discuss the small, the large, and the in charge in the world of mobile technology. I'm your host, Michael Fisher, and joining me this morning from the center of the Pocketnow media empire, Editor-in-Chief Brandon Miniman. Good morning to you.
What up?
And also, coming all the way from Honduras in an overdue return to the Pocketnow Weekly, multimedia editor Jaime Rivera. Good morning to you.
Good morning. The small, the large, and the in charge. Who would be the in charge
how do you come up with this stuff?
Oh, generally, I generally try and wake up at least 7 minutes before the podcast and write the intro before I've had my coffee. So, I still have all my dreams of like, NSYNC era fun late 90s expressions.
You realize that it's become a thing now, right? Everyone expects you to come up with a new clever way to say we cover large phones, small phones, and phones
everything in between.
And everything in between.
Yeah, I know. I've written myself into a corner with it. But it's good. It's all right. It'll be fun for everyone. We have a lot to cover as usual. We have some announcements, and I already have a flashing red light on my new device here, which is going to be distracting me throughout the whole podcast. I've just decided.
Your new device. I am so envious. Okay,
I cannot wait to talk about this new device. But first, let's get some announcements out of the way. For fans of our brand new series, the Pocketnow Live, our series of Google Hangouts with the readers, there is a post up about this already today, but we thought we'd let the listeners of the Weekly know we do not have an episode of the Pocketnow Live this week. We are dealing with some technical issues that we are trying to get ironed out as soon as possible, but they are currently beyond our control. So we apologize. We would love to hang out with you guys, but it's just not going to happen this week, and we are very sorry. But we are having a hangout of our own, which is very secret, and that's all I'm able to say about that. But it will lead to a special announcement from Pocketnow, next week, Brandon, the week after?
I think it should be occurring on February 11th.
February 11th. Stay tuned for an announcement from Pocketnow. And
regarding Pocketnow.
Regarding.
Pocketnow.
Yes, the Pocketnow media empire. And it'll be great. So stay tuned for that. Do you have anything more to say about that, Brandon, or can we jump into the thought thread there?
There's nothing else I could possibly say about it.
But
it's good. It's good. It's exciting. It's an expansion of our team and some other changes to our team, and we're growing up.
Just a whole bunch of good stuff. Yeah, we're shaping up into just a promising little group, aren't we?
Yes.
All right, let's jump into the thought thread here. The device.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chin stroking time.
All right, you're gonna have to edit that out. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Leave it in.
I won't edit that
Let's
out.
move on.
No, that's staying right in. Let's move on. Let's jump into the thought thread, which is about this device that I alluded to. As many of you, as people who follow us on Twitter know, this is going to be a very BlackBerry-centric podcast. At least at the top, because that is the new device sitting next to me. It is a BlackBerry Z10. BlackBerry kind of Oprah-momented all of us at the Toronto event, and actually at all the launch events. But so I have that here. We'll talk about the device in a second, but I want to talk about the device first. Excuse me. I want to talk about the event first. Now, I went to Toronto for the event, and as you may be aware, listeners and readers of Pocketnow, longtime readers, we have not historically covered BlackBerry. As a matter of fact, Brandon, or Jaime, have we ever covered BlackBerry extensively?
Not on purpose.
Not on purpose.
Just accidentally, like every so often somebody mentions BlackBerry in post.
Incidentally, up to the point where if any of our listeners watch Pocketnow Daily, they'll notice that the first news I ever covered of BlackBerry was with your announcement. That was pretty much it.
Yeah, so this is exciting, right? Because we've never covered it before, and we don't even have a banner for it on the home screen. So when we do a BlackBerry story, it's just like a homeless story. It's like a WebOS story. But we're fixing that, though. That's coming in a future redesign, in a redesign coming soon. But anyway, because we've never covered BlackBerry before, the issue has been that trying to get in the door for this launch event was a little difficult because obviously the company then known as RIM had not heard of us, or they'd heard of us, but we weren't terribly relevant to them. So it was really difficult even getting them to respond to our inquiries to come cover an event. But fortunately, they did. We had a wonderful contact inside RIM who we got to know, and we were invited to their launch event, but we couldn't go to the New York one because it was already full. So I ended up driving 9 hours to Toronto from Boston because a last-minute plane flight would have been just umpteen thousands of dollars. And so I drove through like cloud-covered mountaintops in western Massachusetts and New York, and
Lucky you, man.
It was fun, man. Like, I enjoyed the drive. It was.
What did you do on the way? Did you listen to music?
I listened to our podcast. I listened to other folks' podcasts. I really, seriously, I was just podcasting the whole time. And
Really?
I was making phone calls. I was making and taking phone calls because the only time I do that is when I am too bored to do anything else. And I can't text, obviously. So it was fun, though. I got to, hear some of our friends at other sites on the air. I got to hear some people who we don't know, and it was great. It was a very informative drive. But I popped my ear, so I've got some weird right ear problems because of the altitude. So I don't know what's going on with that. But the thing is, the BlackBerry event itself in Toronto was really cool because it was in Canada, and Canadians are so amped about their BlackBerry making company. It's like a matter of national pride. So when the announcements were going on, we saw the live stream from New York, we saw it from London or wherever, and from all the other global locations where BlackBerry was making this announcement. And people were pretty excited, whatever. But when the live cam came up on Toronto, did you guys see that? When the live cam came up on Toronto and everyone was supposed to wave or whatever, everyone jumped out of their seats and waved their arms around like it was some kind of football game, like somebody just scored a goal in soccer or something like that. And it was
really?
It was absolutely crazy. And actually on the live stream you could see the people in the audience in New York and elsewhere laughing at the Toronto explosion. But it was really cool. It wasn't tacky. There were no plants in the audience that the plants that the companies will put in there to start clapping when an event happens so that people clap. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
There may have been plants in the audience, but they were not necessary. Everyone was legit cheering all the time.
There was just so much authentic love for BB10. You didn't need to have a plant.
There really was. Seriously, it was like everyone was cheering for their hometown team that had been down for a couple of years, was now coming back. So it was really easy to get caught up in that kind of excitement, and the product in many ways, deserves it, I think, at this early stage. But the annoying thing is that BlackBerry, who recently changed their name to BlackBerry, which we can talk about in a second if you want, had this really cool event going on for about a half hour where they're showing us the new features of the two phones they announced. They're showing us BB10 and really great stuff. And then, we're all riding pretty high. And then they're like, we're going to bring out our new creative director or some made-up position.
God.
Alicia Keys.
Oh, God. I love Alicia, and I stopped loving her after that.
Oh, my God.
That was terrible. That was really terrible.
It is. And, here's the thing. It wouldn't have been terrible if they brought her out and just asked her for her authentic impressions of the new BlackBerry or did
the authentic
else.
Impressions, like the Jessica Alba thing for Windows Phone, where she was like, "Oh yeah," and I just loaded my iTunes music on, and then Jovial Fury was like, "Oh yeah, I just connected the phone to our Windows software on the Mac, and that's how she got it."
Right.
Making up, that was just so stupid.
All right, so that's a good point, right? So you can't just let them say anything, but Alicia Keys comes on stage and she's reading off the teleprompter, which is fine. Okay, fine. But she clearly didn't write the content that she was spewing. She's just dropping corporate buzzword after buzzword. She's like, oh yeah, I really like using the BlackBerry Balance. It's really nice that it's a device built for work and play, and I'm really into that.
It's like a commercial, a live commercial.
Yeah,
exactly.
Work and play, and then I follow her on Instagram, and she's always publishing things that she obviously did not do on a Z10.
She did it on Instagram for iOS more specifically. And she had this whole convoluted story about how she's like, I was with BlackBerry for a while, but then you disappointed me, so I went over to the iPhone. But now BlackBerry, you've been working out, and now I can come back, and whatever. That's cute and stuff. But it's just you don't stop lying to me. You do not carry this device in your daily life unless a company is throwing millions of dollars at you. And it frustrated me to such an extent that you can actually go back and look at my tweets where they get legit angry, where a follower was like, somebody got up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. I'm like, listen. I was having a good time.
Here's a statement.
But I love the event
everybody that
until
thinks that I'm a fanboy, fine, just push it out to me right now. But Whenever there's an Apple Music event, you get the artist at the end of the event playing music, not talking about the device that's just
right.
being launched.
Exactly, like doing what they do best.
It really annoys me for companies to use celebrities like, oh wow, so now that Alicia Keys uses BlackBerry, oh my God, I'm going to go running to go. By the way, I have every single Alicia Keys album. I am not going to go buy that thing just because she's talking about it.
I think it gives it legitimacy.
What?
Really? I think it helps in people associate. I'm not an Alicia Keys fan, but like, let's say Andre 3000 on stage. Yo, check out this Windows Phone 9. Now I'm gonna do a rap about it. I would sort of think about Andre 3000 when I pick up a Windows Phone 9 device. People link stuff together.
I mean, yeah, like people link stuff together, but I think it just completely undermines the authenticity of what they're trying to accomplish, because it's not like they were trying to boost up a mediocre device like Samsung was doing with the Galaxy Note 10.1 when they brought Baz Luhrmann out on stage, right? So that was like a mediocre tablet that they're like propping up with celebrity endorsements, and it's much more akin to that Windows Phone Jessica Alba thing where it's like, let's bring out Jessica Alba to talk about how this is awesome for working moms. Like, but even that was like more relevant. Like, this Alicia Keys thing just sort of came out of nowhere, and I can understand the mentality that drives a company to do that out of like, you know, in BlackBerry's position where they're like, we have lost a lot of share here and we need to get this, you know, get this big and in depth. But you think it'll help sales?
Call her the ambassador, the BlackBerry ambassador. But the creative director, it's like they're pretty much confirming that she worked for the company, which is complete BS. Just complete BS. You know, here's the point. We hate, and I think our commenters know that, we hate paid chills. We despise them. Right. And that's what Alicia Keys looked like, a paid chill.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't want to talk about Alicia Keys all day. All I'm saying is it was just so transparent and so disingenuous and so irritating, particularly on the heels of such a cool, what up to that moment had been such a cool morning. And I felt a little bad for getting so angry on Twitter until I looked at the rest of the Twitter sphere and until I listened to some of our competitors' podcasts, and like everyone felt the same way. No one was into this. Everyone would, you know, don't pander to me. Don't like patronize me with this like obvious falsehood. I'm not going to get excited because Alicia Keys is falsely backing a product that I know she's just going to come home and like put on the counter and pick up her iPhone and start using. Like it doesn't do anything.
You know, and I think the problem was really the audience. I mean, you know, a room full of press people is really not the audience where you want it. I mean, if this would have been a live stream that every single customer, every BlackBerry customer could have ever watched, then it would have made sense to bring Alicia Keys on stage and call her the ambassador. But if you want to do it, you know, to the press, that's not really going to go well.
Yeah. So, you know, but fortunately, and since, by the way, since we did mention Samsung and Nokia, I'm going to write a piece on this because it's not just BlackBerry. I mean, everyone does this, and it's stupid all the time. So we'll discuss this maybe more later. But I want to talk about the device and the new platform, which actually is really cool, and which
cool, huh?
It is. It has surprised me.
That's an interesting way to describe it. Can we get into this, because I've got a lot of questions.
Please, just hit me with them, man. Please, because I've got it right here. I've got the Z10. They Oprah momented us, like I said. So every reporter in the room got a Z10, and I've been using it since yesterday.
Oprah moment. All right.
Yeah.
I think the most relevant question in a day when there are competing devices is why BlackBerry 10. What is it, or is there anything about that device that you've been using that has a better capability than your Note 2, your Lumia 920, and iPhone 5?
There is. There are a few things, and they're unique and they're interesting. And you know, I read some of the other reviews because, as usual, some other sites got review units like weeks in advance, and they were able to go up right at like midnight or whenever the hell it was that morning. And we didn't get one of those because we haven't been a BlackBerry coverer for very long. But I read a lot of these reviews, and a lot of them didn't cover what makes the new BlackBerry so unique. And that's because a lot of sites are not tailored to cover like enterprise use cases. And we aren't either, because frankly, I mean, consumers don't really want to read about that stuff. It's generally pretty boring to a lot of consumers unless they're really invested in corporate smartphone doings. But BlackBerry Balance is pretty cool. It's the feature that I feel like BlackBerry and other companies always cart out this feature where they're like, you want your phone to be for work and play. Well, our phone does both of them equally well. And, Windows Phone tries to make that claim, and BlackBerry just does it completely differently. With BlackBerry, with this, you can like swipe down from the. You can access a very special menu and hit a button, and your phone it reskins it, it rethemes it, like everything turns business-like. Did you see it in my in the software tour?
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah. That's an interesting extra step, but does that extra step add value, or are you better off having everything mixed together like you would on your Android phone?
It depends on your preferences, but it also depends on your employer's preferences. Like, what's nice is that it doesn't just change the wallpaper to like carbon fiber, and it's like, oh, now I'm in business mode. Like, it actually establishes rules that are then governed by whatever your company's server does. So in business mode, you have access to certain files and certain documents and like the file manager and stuff that you do not have access to in personal mode, and vice versa. So it also prevents you from coming in hungover on a Monday morning and accidentally sending out some pictures you took over the weekend via your corporate email. Because it doesn't let you access it establishes a very strong firewall between everything you've determined as personal and everything you've determined as corporate, and it's on the same device. So I think it does do that better than anything I've seen so far. It's certainly not the flagship feature, but it's cool.
That's an interesting. That's absolutely not something that I would switch to BlackBerry for. So please continue on the stuff that it does better.
Okay, different. but I'll to Michael's point, I'll make one. I worked 15 years in airline businesses, and for me it was really cool. I worked in an airline where everything was connected, the first one. Mm-hmm. And I had to, I had access to everything everywhere. And my problem was that I would get, I would have these crazy 10, 12-hour days. And then it was like, since the airline worked 24 hours, I would get these crazy emails or crazy communications or whatever at midnight. And, the cool thing about going to the other airline was, like, when you were in the airline, you got bugged. When you were out of the airline, you couldn't be connected to anything. So, nice. You had a life. You seriously had a life. And, that was really cool. And, if that is a policy, there are actually companies that have those policies where you're just not going to be disturbed from this time to this time, and I think that's the cool thing to do. So I feel that it has a purpose.
Right, and maybe it was a mistake to lead off with that because that is one of the drier features of this thing. But from if you're just a user and you want to know some quick stuff that it does really really well, it's really difficult to describe the UI. But I'm a UI guy and I go on about it forever.
You like the live tiles.
Yeah, I do like the live tiles on Windows Phone, and BlackBerry kind of replaces that with these, your last 8 apps end up in very WebOS-like cards on your home screen landing page. But that's cool, and we can kind of talk about that. But the thing is, if you swipe to the right from your home screen, you just take your thumb and you slide to the right, you're dropped into the BlackBerry Hub. And this is the coolest thing about it because I'll tell you guys, I have not been in the BlackBerry app world much at all. Since picking up the device. I've downloaded Google Talk and one other thing because I've had a lot of message traffic obviously in the past couple days, and BlackBerry still, whether it's I think this applies to BlackBerry 7 maybe as well, but even then, but BlackBerry 10 especially does messaging better than any other device that I have used.
What do you mean by that?
So when you swipe to the right, you get in the BlackBerry Hub,
which is a mishmash of that's right not there. It's just like a
it's a unified inbox. Okay.
Of everything, including your tweets and your Facebook updates.
I'll tell you exactly what it includes. It includes system notifications, BBM, text messages, Gmail, Pocketnow Mail, Facebook, Twitter, Google Talk, and phone calls and voicemail. So every possible kind of notification I could have on this device, it's all aggregated into a list. And then if you swipe right again, you can filter that list again into any of those categories. So it's like, I just want to see my work email. You just swipe to the right, and then you do that. So it aggregates the messages in a very BlackBerry way. BlackBerry's been doing that for since its inception, has done this unified inbox really well. Yeah. But in modern form, not only is it useful, but now it's also somewhat pretty. Like, it's still very business-like, straight-laced BlackBerry, but it's actually really cool. And if you pull down on the message list, instead of doing a pull to refresh, which might actually be pretty useful, it shows you your upcoming calendar events. So they're kind of always there for you. You're like, oh, all right, well, the weekly is coming up. I got to follow up with some people. Okay. And then you release it, and it snaps back to your message list. And then if you want to... Go ahead.
Are there little... I was going to say, are there little icons to say that these are tweets, these are Facebook conversations?
Yeah, there are. To the left of everything, there's like a little delineator, like it'll show a text message bubble or a Twitter icon or whatever. And then you also have like status messages, as BlackBerry has always done for sending. So say you send something, like you get the little wave icon when it's trying to send, and then you get a check mark when it's delivered, which is really cool.
I don't know. I don't know if Brandon remembers this, but I had recently started in Pocketnow like how long was it? I don't remember, but I recently started. I was like, man, I just got myself a BlackBerry. Remember the BlackBerry Pearl back then?
Oh yeah, it was the hotness.
I was, I was so, I was like, oh my God, I really did not want a BlackBerry. I seriously didn't until I actually unboxed the thing and started using it. And really what blew me away was that hub. The messaging hub.
The inbox, yeah.
I was like, oh God, I don't have to go anywhere. Everything's here.
Everything's here. It's in a straight rundown. It is diametrically opposed to what Windows Phone does, which makes you go all over the place in your different hubs because it has no notification center.
To what the iPhone does as well. I mean, the iPhone gives you notifications, but everything just keeps pushing you from app to app.
Right. Well, but the iPhone and Android put them in that notification shade, right? This is basically a different form of that, except it's off to the left. And what's awesome, so if you're watching a YouTube video on BlackBerry 10 and you want to see, like, a notification comes in, the red light starts flashing, it doesn't have a persistent message bar across the top. Like, there's no status bar across the top of the screen, which is kind of annoying in a way. Like, there's no glanceable info. But if you drag your thumb up from the bottom of the screen while that YouTube video is playing, you get the peak option, and from off to the left, your little notification icons come onto the screen, and they're like, oh, you have a Facebook message and an email. And it's like, okay, I don't want to deal with either of those. You just bring your thumb back down, and the video never gets interrupted. It just keeps playing.
But isn't it better, though, if you have a notification bar at the top so you don't have to, do that? You don't have to take your hands off
yes. It totally is. And I used BlackBerry navigation, the turn-by-turn navigation, to get me back from Toronto. So for 9 hours, I had 9 hours to think about how I would really like this to be a glanceable model. Because every time a notification came in, I had to, reach up to the phone and, put my finger on the screen and, peek in. So, yes, that is annoying. I feel like it could be fixed if BlackBerry had simply installed a multicolored LED instead of the flashing red one, because that would fix the problem instantly, without having to compromise their screen aesthetic, which is it's a little like Windows Phone in that it's like, you don't want that status bar all the time. We're going to hide it most of the time. Which, okay,
Well, you guys are not liking that. I actually do. It's just funny, but for example, one of the things everybody on this planet hates iOS notifications. You hate being interrupted. Yeah. You're trying to read a book, you're trying to watch a video, and these things just pop up on top of a little portion of the video. It just really annoys me, and I there are certain things that I wish, and I actually wrote an editorial about this. I wish that iOS do not disturb thing actually worked when the phone is on. I wish that I could tell it not to bother me when I'm reading a book.
Right.
And the fact that they are focusing on making the video and the navigation immersive, and that you're not being distracted by notifications is something I do like. Now, yeah, it's probably taking it to an extreme. I understand where you're going.
Yeah, it is. I mean, there's a happy medium that they still have yet to find. I mean, but in 1.0, they're not going to be able to find it. But before I forget about messaging, one of the nice things is when you decide to reply, you've got this new keyboard model. Now, you guys have seen this, right? Where the keyboard, the new predictive text.
You swipe up and everything.
It's like you swipe up. It's that
with the word predictions.
Yeah, the word predictions, instead of appearing on a ribbon at the top of the keyboard, like Android. The word predictions happen on the keyboard. You're typing and these words are floating up like clouds from the keys, under your thumb tips, and it's weird. But
is it cool? I mean, does it work? Is it good?
That has two answers. I have found that if you are typing with two fingers, if you're flying, going high speed, you don't use them. They just don't even, they're not even a distraction after a few seconds. You just don't use them because you're going so fast. But if you are carrying this thing with one hand, which is very easy to do because it's a 4.2-inch screen on the Z10, and you've got like groceries in your other hand or whatever, and you're trying to text, it is so useful. Because you can start typing like exploring or whatever, like a long word, and by the time you hit EXP, it already knows what you want to say, and you can just flick up to throw that word right into the text.
And that sounds a little bit better. There's just less thumb travel than iOS and Android, right?
Exactly, much less. Now it is difficult to get used to because your eye on Android has been trained to go to the top of the keyboard, and that's fine, and it works well, and I'm very fast when I'm typing on Android. But once you get used to the BlackBerry implementation, which I'm still in the middle of, like I say, in two-handed typing, it doesn't really work well. In one-handed typing, it has really saved me a lot of time already.
I think most people type with two fingers. Is that to say that the keyboard is not necessarily better for two-handed, two-finger typers?
For two-finger typers, I would say the BlackBerry 10 keyboard is probably on par with the stock Jelly Bean or stock Windows Phone 8 keyboard.
Windows Phone 8 keyboard. I don't know, Michael. Well, let's leave Windows Phone 8 for later.
Sure.
Because you remember that somebody told us when we were in Vegas that the iOS keyboard was actually designed for one-handed usability and not two-hand.
Yes, I do remember that.
So I actually, the guy was like, it is true. You just give it a try, and I, actually gave it a try, and the guy was actually right. But so you have that same feeling that it's really functional when one-handed, but it's obviously made for two-handed as well.
Yes, and especially when you go to landscape, you can really fly on it, and it's responsive. BlackBerry couldn't afford to screw up the keyboard, right? Oh, and there's another thing too. Now, you guys, Jaime in particular, and Tony, if he were here, would really appreciate this. You can start typing in another language. So, you don't have to change the keyboard.
Oh, like SwiftKey.
Probably. I should really use that. But yeah, you just start typing in in French or in Spanish or whatever, and it detects that you're doing that, and it puts all the.
That is amazing.
Yeah, I've
completely switched my email sending to Android just because of that.
Just because, yeah. Well, I am the ignorant American, of course. I only speak one language well, and but I can't type in other languages. But seeing the demo was really cool.
I have a question. The keyboard, the on-screen keyboard, looks a lot like a real keyboard because it's got those fake metallic bars between the rows.
Yeah.
I imagine that helps to space the keys out vertically. Is that helpful, or do you find it to increase the finger travel that you'd use?
No, I'm looking at the bands right now, and there may be about I don't know, maybe 15
I don't know. The spacing
pixels
looks
tall
actually
or something
smaller
like
than the iOS keyboard.
The spacing is probably right on par with it. Unfortunately, I don't have an iPhone 5 here next to it to compare, and I haven't used an iOS keyboard in a while on a mobile device. But the spacing is very, very good, and the bands echo the actual metal bands on the Q10, which isn't released yet, the one with the real physical keyboard, which. Now, on the software thing, they don't serve a purpose other than aesthetics. On the BlackBerry Q10, those metal bands actually keep the keys in place, I was told. So if you drop the BlackBerry Q10, your keys don't go flying everywhere. So it's nicely thought out.
Your Alicia Keys don't go flying anywhere.
Hey!
This girl is on fire.
Oh, God.
All right, can we...
Please do that every time.
So there's
Go ahead.
I was going to say there's a jillion things to talk about, so let's move on from the keyboard.
Yeah.
And why don't we talk about apps next? Because when you were talking about YouTube, you got me curious on how this thing deals with YouTube. Is there a native YouTube app?
Yeah, no, it just dropped. It's just like Windows Phone. You tap YouTube, it drops you into m.youtube.com.
Which is fine. That the m.youtube.com is great.
It's not great.
The problem with the m.youtube.com is it doesn't stream the true HD. Like on Android, you get 720p video.
Plus, the comment formatting is all screwed up. It's old school. It's weird. Whatever. It's services, but it's not. What can they do? It's RIM. Google is just being kind of openly hostile to a lot of smaller platforms.
That's a good point.
And it's not that it's not. I'm not willing to blame RIM, just as I'm not willing to blame Microsoft. If Google doesn't want to play with you, then there's nothing you can do except try and be nice to them or try and throw money at them or something.
Right.
So
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I keep talking. Say that. I was going to say, so there are two different. I guess there are three different kinds of apps. Mm-hmm. There are the sort of QNX apps that we found in the playbook. Then there are the native BB10 apps, and then there are Android apps. Is that right?
Oh, right. Yeah, because they have to get to that amazing 70,000 apps on launch day number. They had to have a portathon where they ported a lot of Android apps, which I didn't realize also ported the Android UI from within those apps.
Oh yeah.
So if you're running a game or something and a dialog box comes up, it's like, oh wow, that's that's the dialog box from Android. That's weird and doesn't feel great.
And it looks like Android 2.1. Looks
yeah, yeah.
It is. It's gingerbread, right?
Something like that,
it's
right?
Froyo, I think it is.
So whatever the case, it doesn't look great. But yeah, some of the native apps from you can see the Astonishing Tribes influence in some of these. Like the clock is really, really pretty, and it sounds like stupid. It's like, we're going to talk about the clock, but it is actually, you can see the potential for some of these apps to look really good. But there's only a handful. Frankly, I'm a little disappointed that there's not more of a TAT influence throughout.
I saw Asphalt 7 there, and that just sold me in. It sold me in because I know it's a stupid game, but the point is, those phone users are still using Asphalt 5.
Right.
So the fact that BlackBerry figured out how to get, some of the newer things, I wrote this in an editorial yesterday. I don't care if these guys have 1 million apps. Windows Phone has 100,000 apps, out of which 70,000 are all fake ports of something real. And I really even hate the fact that Microsoft actually promotes these fake Pinterest apps. Get the damn Pinterest app. What's such the big deal? And I feel BlackBerry. I heard that they said it. We focused on the best 1,000 apps that were on these app stores, and that's what we got. And that's really the way you should approach it.
They had some weak ass dig at Microsoft where they're like, forget about the 46 out of the top 50. We've got 70,000, which was like, okay. So how many of them are ebooks?
Do they have Spotify?
No, they don't have Spotify. No.
Do they have Pandora?
They don't have Pandora. They don't have
Skype?
Yelp. They do have Skype. Yeah, when you search for Spotify, you get Music Master for BlackBerry, a $3 app with 1 star.
Great.
Yeah, let's see. When you search for Yelp, because I was trying to use Yelp before. I was trying to I was like, oh man, I'm in Toronto. Let me see if I can find a burger place. No, you search Yelp, you get Yelp News, a free app with no reviews.
How about Netflix and Hulu? And
no, Netflix is not there, and neither is Hulu. Netflix is a big omission for launch day, actually, I think.
Big omission, definitely.
Yeah. Frankly, fortunately, Google Talk is there, but I just want to confirm Pandora while we're in here. No, Apollo, Pandora Radio Client, Pandora City Guide, and Music Master for BlackBerry again. All of these apps with very few stars. So there are significant gaps in the App Store. It's commendable that they managed to launch with 70,000 apps, but I think a lot of that is just kind of playing this numbers game where they're like, blow them away with the number, and we'll get to the cool apps later, because there's not much that's really piquing my interest in the App Store.
What do you guys predict will happen with the app situation over the next year?
That's a very good question. And I think, as just holding this thing and looking at it and seeing how invested RIM is in it and how fiercely devoted they are to this idea, this platform is compelling enough to where I think developers would at least pause before choosing between developing for Windows Phone or BlackBerry as a third platform. Developers will give this a chance, I think.
Well, let's think like a developer. Developers want devices that are in lots of people's hands, so they want it to be on lots of devices. Mm-hmm. I know I'm being a bit of a naysayer. So there will be 2 devices, BlackBerry 10. We don't know about carrier availability. Sprint said that they'll have a BlackBerry 10 device, and
no, we do.
I don't think any other carriers mentioned.
No, in the States we've got it'll be on all 4 nationals.
Oh, okay. That's news to me. That's a great start.
Yeah, isn't that great? Yeah, because all 4 carriers announced pre-registration and price plans. In Canada, the Z10 is going to be available February 5th. And it'll, whatever. So it's definitely going to be in a lot of hands.
I'm going to put this whole app, to answer the app thing. Okay, first of all, there are a ton of BlackBerry enthusiasts still. They're still out there.
Right.
And the difference between, I wrote, Windows Phone versus BlackBerry 10, which is the next underdog. I wrote that yesterday. And, my point was very simple. There is already a big market of BlackBerry users out there that just want another BlackBerry. There are a ton of companies that already have BlackBerry Enterprise servers that just want to keep using them. And so I feel that there is already a big opportunity and market share out there for people that just want to move to an ex-BlackBerry.
And that is so easy to forget if you live in America.
If you live in America. But then when you come to Latin America, this country is flocked with BlackBerries. Everybody's got a BlackBerry here. It's amazing. And so
it's the same thing in Canada. Yeah.
Exactly. And so here's the deal. in the case of Windows Phone, for example, the reason why I feel that it's been so difficult for Microsoft to pick it up is because there wasn't really any Windows Phone enthusiasts out there that are willing to, people from Windows Mobile were really let down by Windows Phone. Instead of like being, oh my God, we're going to Windows Phone 7, the reaction was completely opposite.
Yeah, well, it was a fresh start. Like, it was something so completely different and stuff. And we keep talking about Windows Phone, by the way, because it's very, very important, because if Windows Phone and BlackBerry are going to be head-to-head. I mean, they're fighting for the third place slot right now. We don't need to worry about Android and iOS, like, getting to parity with them, getting anywhere close to overcoming them is so far down the road, it's amazing. But Windows Phone 8 and BlackBerry 10 are the biggest headbutters around right now, I think.
Right.
Go ahead.
And the reason why I mention it is because, for those who were probably, upset by whatever I wrote yesterday, the point was very simple. It's not that I'm hating Microsoft. I'm just talking about a mathematical fact. One company already has a market share, and the other one is still struggling to figure that out. I mean, we've already had Windows Phone for pretty much 3 versions over the past 2.5 years, and the app problem has not been fixed.
Well,
and then we've got BlackBerry, that figured out Dropbox on launch date, that figured out Asphalt 7 on launch date. So who am I? So I'm like, who am I going to trust? Am I going to trust the company that figured it out on day one with no excuses, a couple of excuses, or am I going to trust on a company that's been here for 2.5 years and that has not figured it out?
I think that's I know where you're coming from. I think it's a gross oversimplification because BlackBerry figured out a couple things on launch date, and it's cool that they launched with an impressive number, but they're not launching with. We just went through it like 5 minutes ago. They're not launching with some crucial apps that even Windows 8 managed to launch with, such as Netflix. So that BlackBerry has its own severe app problems, but I think BlackBerry is showing more promise on launch day than Windows Phone did in either its 7 or its 8 iterations.
Right.
So I think it has less distance to travel to grow in that sense. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But it's funny to me how very much like actually WebOS it is, where it's like for me personally, where it's like I'm enjoying using the device in its baseline out-of-box functionality so much that I haven't even paid attention to the app situation much in the past couple days. Were you going to say something, Brandon?
I was gonna say you know what gets my antenna extended?
No, I don't, but I'm looking forward to hearing it.
All right. Well, I was going to say this white Q10, it really does it for me.
With the white Q10?
The white Q10, yes.
Oh, I didn't see a white Q10. I saw the other one. The Q10 is the QWERTY-enabled one.
Yeah, check Google Images. Here's a funny thing about these hardware keyboards. They totally went away, and we haven't seen an Android phone, save for a few kind of low-end, mid-range Motorola devices that have had a QWERTY keyboard, because I think people have fully accepted and are so used to on-screen keyboards, and they're really good. And of course, there's this whole issue of why would you want to have a QWERTY keyboard when you could make the whole device a screen? But anyway, I feel more productive with a QWERTY keyboard. Maybe it's just a mental thing of like, here, these buttons are clicking in, but like this Q10, although the keys are arranged like they're arranged in a grid, which is kind of weird. They're not staggered. It gets me excited. It really does. What do you guys think?
Me too. I completely agree, and I played with the Q10, and I tried to get some hands-on time with the Q10, but I was so busy shooting the Z10 videos, and by the time I wanted to get some hands-on with the Q10, they were wrapping up, so I was like, damn it. But the Q10 is really cool. It looks like a BlackBerry Bold with a taller screen. And what's the coolest thing about it, besides the physical keyboard, is they didn't make it a mid-range device. Because normally, Brandon, you're absolutely right. Like these Android devices with physical keyboards are almost always this mid-range crap, where it's like, oh wow, the specs suck and the performance sucks and whatever. But the Q10 has the same guts as the Z10. It has the same processor, the same RAM. The screen size is reduced, but the quality is not. The camera is the same resolution. It's just a Z10 with a keyboard.
How do you watch a video with that?
Yeah, that's going to be... It's not a multimedia machine. I was thinking that too, Jaime. Like, oh, geez, bars galore. Games are going to be weird too. But I feel like the Q10 is really a messaging device.
Exactly.
So it's got probably an AMOLED display like the Z10 has, right?
It does. Yep, it's the exact same display technology, and I think the resolution is like 720 by 720. Is it a square?
It's 7 by 720.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a crisp screen, and the Z10 has probably a very crisp screen. Can you see any pixels, Michael?
It does indeed. I cannot, and I'm not very good at spotting pixels, but it has a 356 ppi.
That's pretty high,
which is not bad at all.
That's better than the iPhone. I mean, come on.
It's quite nice. What's interesting though, I don't want to leave this point behind. Like Canada, I mean, I've talked about how nationalistic they are, but with regard to how BlackBerry does, and everyone seems very invested in it. But not only do I see people on the street in Toronto just carrying BlackBerries everywhere. Everyone still has an old BlackBerry. My Z10 was being asked about kind of like constantly after I got it. Like I talked to the hotel clerk at the Marriott for like 15 minutes. And I mean, people are really, really, so that is another advantage that BlackBerry has, is that they do have this installed base, which we dismiss in America because we've been watching people for years drop their BlackBerries off at the recycling center because they got their new iPhone, and corporations are adopting iPhone integration, all this kind of stuff. But there is still a large base of installed BlackBerry customers that are going to be pretty interested in this.
Yeah,
and that's another thing that gives me hope for them.
I don't know. Go ahead.
I was going to say, do you find the Z10 attractive? I mean, Jaime and I were talking about how thick those bezels are. Is that a problem?
You mean on the top and bottom?
And the sides. It looks like it's very thick bezel all around.
I don't find it unattractive. Some people have said that it looks like it looks like a reference device or a developer device a little bit.
A prototype.
It almost looks like the Dev Alpha, yeah. But it doesn't. It doesn't look that bad, okay? But it does have a certain amount of no-nonsense. Like, there's not a lot of glitz to it. It's a matte finish on the top and bottom. The bezel doesn't bother me on the screen too much. And the back is this textured back that looks rigid, but it's actually kind of soft-touchy. It feels pretty good. This is a phone that I wouldn't mind beating up a little bit. It seems like it could take it. It's as if my girlfriend said last night when I was showing it to her, she was like, "It's like an iPhone and a Droid had a baby." Like it's basically what it is. It's like a cross between the Droid X
baby
and
talk already.
Oh
all
God!
right.
Oh no! Hey now! No, but it is like the weird offspring of an iPhone 5 and a Droid X or something like that.
I want that phone. I want that.
So hardware-wise, it's cool. Can I tell you guys something a little weird? And maybe this will make me sound like a super amateur. I don't know, but I had this with a Bell SIM in Canada. Okay, so this is, it was working fine up there. I crossed the border in the United States. I am still using it for navigation, so I'm like, oh, let me pop in my AT&T SIM. When I put in my AT&T SIM and powered this BlackBerry on, I got, instead of the BlackBerry splash screen, I got a brand new AT&T splash screen.
No way.
Yeah, and my ringtone changed to an AT&T ringtone.
Oh, come on.
Dude, I didn't even know this was technically possible. I didn't know
that's
any
so strange.
information was stored in the SIM that could affect splash screens and ringtone. I had no idea.
Are you getting LTE?
Oh yeah, I sure am.
Oh, so it's probably. I mean, it's.
Wow, that's very interesting.
It kind of makes sense because when you put the Bell, it's probably an AT&T phone first, and so you put the Bell SIM in, and it says, "Oh, I'm roaming," and then when you put the AT&T SIM in, it's like, "Oh, I'm at home." No, this
is an unlocked global device.
No, I think that what they're doing is they're changing something. They have a way of something is pre-installed on the phone, and when it detects the SIM, it just adapts. Because whenever you buy like here in my country, you buy a Tigo BlackBerry, it gives you a Tigo splash screen, or you go to Claro and you get the other splash screen, and obviously that's pre-installed on the phone. But
right.
I guess they figured out a way to do it, in a way that it could flip itself depending on what happens. It probably even downloads it from the net and just you just really don't know it's happening.
Well, it could be. Yeah, it actually could be. You could use the data connection to just grab it. But anyway, I found that very interesting. Can we talk just briefly about some of the 1.0 stuff that is very obvious, like that they really had to rush this thing out the door? It's once again very reminiscent of picking up my Palm Pre and going home with it in 2009 and being like, oh, you guys weren't done. Oh,
that's amazing. It's really incredible that is the case. Because this has been, this is already delayed one time. I mean, what have they been, I'm sure it's very complicated to do what they've done, but it's just surprising. But anyway, what is Half Baked?
The navigation, the turn-by-turn navigation I used from Toronto to Boston, and that's a 9-hour drive, as I said before, and it performed well. It's using map data from TomTom or Garmin or something like that. It's like a Bing experience. It's very bare bones. But worse than that, it freezes. So, like, the phone doesn't freeze. The phone doesn't hang or reboot, but the app, like, all of a sudden the road animation will stop moving. And
so it's worse than Apple Maps. Can that be even possible?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as the maps itself go, the maps are fine if they're a little bare bone, but the navigation. So, like, I'm driving along and I'm like, all of a sudden I realized that, like, for 15 miles, the display on the screen hasn't changed much. Like, I've been in a gradual left-hand turn for 15 miles. And I'm like, what? That can't be right. And I unlocked it, and I'm like, oh, you're not even updating. What's going on? So that happened about 6 or 7 times in 9 hours. So that was exciting. Don't use a Z10 to drive with. It's interesting. I've been keeping notes. Where is it? First impressions versus driving notes. I've got a whole bunch of notes for the eventual review, I guess, or whatever we do. But like, the Facebook Messenger is so laggy that it's completely unusable. The BlackBerry has built in this kind of like Siri competitor, which
it uses pretty much the same icon as Siri, which is strange.
It kind of does. And it's convenient because you can use it with the convenience key that's between the volume up and volume down. You press and hold, and then you've got voice command. But like, I was using it to make phone calls yesterday, and I'm like, call, Brandon Miniman. And then it thinks about it for like 15 seconds. And then it's like, and then when it finally decides to call you, regardless of how many numbers you have, like, I have like 6 phone numbers under you, Brandon. It's like, calling Brandon Miniman, mobile. Like, the only time it asks which number you want to call is like if you have multiple mobile instances. But it always defaults to mobile. And then
it competes with S-Voice then.
Yeah,
That's
what? It doesn't even compete with S-Voice. Like, it's pretty bad. And what, Brandon? Didn't I send you an email yesterday?
It was like, I like aliens on my birthday that are naked.
Oh, what was it? I will actually, because you can't tell what the content of the message is at all. Yeah.
So voice dictation. Voice dictation is so fantastic on iOS and Android and Windows Phone. So
it's not fantastic on Windows Phone, but yes, it is fantastic on iOS and Android. I agree.
But it's slow and not accurate.
What I will tell you that listeners get to hear this sentence. This is what BlackBerry voice dictation thought I was trying to say in an email to Brandon. No, Tony. I like the more hot mama, so maybe I have been underwritten you later. We'll exam tomorrow. Like, it is the most ridiculous interpretation of nothing speak.
And was the hot mama?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't anything close to that. Like, I don't, I'm not gonna. It's a little. It's like a private business thing. So I'm not gonna say what I was trying to say. But man, it was ridiculous. So there's bugs. None of them are really major except for that driving one. Seriously, don't rely on the turn by turn to get you anywhere. But these are things that I imagine will get fixed relatively quickly. We have to see what BlackBerry's track record is on updates with the new BlackBerry OS. We have to see how quickly they deal with bugs like this, and how quickly they can solve the app problem, frankly. But all this stuff combined, just to wrap it up really, really roughly from my end, gives me more hope for this platform than I thought. I kind of went to this event thinking, I'm like, here's the last gasp out of BlackBerry before somebody snaps them up. But they seem it's a product that I'm excited about, actually.
Okay, I'll tell you why I want that BlackBerry 10.
Yeah.
Okay, first of all, they're not doing the jumbo thing.
Right.
They're not. They're bringing in a decent size that's good for your hand and that's focused on really using the phone and not just looking big.
I can applaud that. I agree with that. I think we all kind of agree with that idea that we kind of want our 4 to 4.3 inch phones back.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I also like the fact that they are not doing mid-tiered. They've always been a mid-tiered company, which is funny, and now they're just doing high-end, and that's really interesting. But really, for me, which are my biggest gripes with iOS, for example? I hate getting a notification and getting popped into the app and have to wait for the app to refresh.
Oh, that's so ridiculous.
That is ridiculous.
It's
and
like,
that
what's
is
the point of
stupid.
notifying me if it's not ready? It's
Exactly. I mean, if you come from Windows Mobile, you're really spoiled, and you just don't want for the app to refresh. And to my understanding, you don't have that problem in BlackBerry, right?
Right.
Michael?
No, if you're hopping into an app that like,
Okay. The second thing is, for me, I feel that it's really smart that, when you turn on the phone, the first thing you get. I like the fact that you don't have to press the power button. I like the fact that you can slide and turn it on.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
which is really cool.
It is really cool. Oh, and by
yeah.
the way, everyone in the comments. I hate the commenters today. By the way, that's a whole nother thing. But everyone's like, oh, I wouldn't like that because it's gonna like unlock in my pants pocket. And it's like, all right, that's fine. That's legit.
Come on.
You can mash your palm against the screen. You can mash your thigh against the. It doesn't matter. It is finger detection. It's not unlocking in your pants pocket. Everyone settle down. Please continue.
How does it do that without wasting battery life? And we should talk about battery life soon. But doesn't it have to like constantly watch for a gesture like that?
Constantly wait for a gesture. Yeah, I don't know how it does it, but you'll recall that the N9 did the same thing with Migo.
Yeah, the N9 did the same thing.
You could drag from bezel to bezel.
And for me, the thing about it is
its battery life was fine.
You remember holstering on BlackBerrys? You remember that you could buy a holster, and when you put it in the holster, it would turn off the phone, and then you pulled it out, and it turned it on?
It does that. The holster that I have does that now, yeah, because it comes with one.
Oh, you're kidding. It does that too?
It comes with one, yeah. It's got a magnet embedded. The magnet screwed up my hotel key, by the way.
That made me fall in love with BlackBerry years ago.
Yeah.
He's going to do it again.
And I am going to do it again, yes. Okay, but one thing that I really found interesting is the whole thing that when you turn the phone on, you go into your recently used apps. I mean, I think that's like a really smart thing. I mean, what else do you do when you turn on a phone? I mean, you want to go. Usually, here's the deal. I have a ton of apps on my iPhone or on my Android phone, but still, there are really only like 5 apps that I like permanently and constantly use. And here I get 8 tiles. So I like that. I like the fact that my 5 favoritely used applications, Instagram, Facebook, email, Twitter, are going to be permanently in the cards in front.
Well, yeah, as long as you keep using them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and they're going to automatically refresh themselves in the card.
Right, and sometimes they'll turn into like widget-like things. Like if the app supports it, when they're minimized, you can watch the process killer or whatever Kinix is doing. You can watch it coming in the background because the card will minimize to like a minimized view first, and then after about 2 or 3 seconds, if it's enabled for like widget view, it'll flash up its widget form.
But the problem with that, like if you have the weather app open, and you only check the weather once a day, and you're using other apps, the weather widget, which is useful to see the temperature, floats to the bottom of the page, right?
Yes, and that is frustrating.
Can't pin it.
I don't think you can rearrange them. No, I'm trying to rearrange now.
Well, but that could be a version too. I feel that here's the deal.
That's gotta be.
Yeah. What things don't I like about iOS, for example? I like that the UI is very well, it uses the space very well, and it does the same on BlackBerry 10. I like that. They're not giving you people in like gigantor text at the top and just blocking like half your display. They're actually using the hub better when it comes to space. But, I like the fact that it's elegant and that it uses space well. And I like the fact that it's actually smart. The hub is smart. I always felt that it was smart in BlackBerry 7 and all the previous versions. So I am looking forward to it. I am looking forward to waiting on them to figure out apps. And I definitely want a Z10. That's me.
Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to say, Brandon, in response to your brief bit about battery life, it is not impressive so far.
Not impressive. Is that because you're using it a lot, or because you're watching it go down by 10% with 5 minutes of use?
It is a combination. I mean, I am using it a lot. It is a tiny cell, too. It's like 1,800 milliamp hours.
No, everybody's complaining about the battery on that phone.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it's going to do too well on the battery life thing. But, I'm going to reserve judgment. But, you've got to really... for the device size, you've got a really large and high resolution screen. I know it's not large in conventional terms, but it's large relative to the battery. And you have this BlackBerry hub that's working. It's got LTE. It's got a lot of power draining stuff going on. So.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
The BlackBerry 10 is one of the first pretty much fully gesture-based operating systems. It doesn't rely on buttons. It requires you to remember a bunch of gestures.
Right.
Are you finding that to be frustrating, or is it helpful
to
not have buttons?
Yes. Yes, both. It's awesome because gesture-based OSs, once you get into the groove of them, you really can move pretty quickly, and you can get a lot done with much more so than mashing on a stupid mechanical button, which I just hate.
So 80s.
Yeah, it is. But
no, and it extends the durability of the phone. I mean, Brandon, you just had a
yeah.
problem with the iPhone 4S with the button being
the button
stuck.
breaking. But the thing is, no, it's true. But also, there is a learning curve, and this is the important part. And this is what I think is hurting Windows 8 already. And it's going to hurt BlackBerry because the learning curve for the gestures on BlackBerry, I would argue, are steeper than
they're
Windows
crazy.
8.
That go up and then to the left, and then to the left again.
Right.
No.
It's
not intuitive.
It's not, because you slide up with your thumb from the bezel to unlock. Now, that's intuitive. But you slide up from the bezel, and the screen extends to the right. And then you move to the right, and then it extends further to the right. Like, that's not... It doesn't immediately come to you. And then you slide down from the top for settings. That's okay. But the thing is, sometimes there's a back button, and sometimes there's not. If there's not a back button, you have to remember what direction to slide the screen to go back. And if there is a back button, sometimes you forget to look for it because you're trying to slide the screen. So there's a lack of consistency in the gesture-based UI that is frustrating. And if you have somebody who's not like a lot, forgive me, but like maybe a lot of business users who are like, I don't have time to mess around. I need just for it to work. Like,
the same thing they feel about Windows 8.
Right, because like if you're not willing to invest the 2 or 3 days into getting used to the gestures that I think it probably takes, then this thing is going to have... I would wager that it's going to have a high return rate until BlackBerry figures out a way to communicate gestures. Once again, I sound like a broken record, but I keep coming back to WebOS. WebOS suffered significantly in the retail outlets before Palm was able to teach people how to use the gestures with an animation. And BlackBerry has a little guide on here that you can view the guide and how to work the BlackBerry, but it doesn't let you it shows you what to do on the screen with animations, but you can't actually do the action it's asking you to do.
It's not interactive.
Right. So it's like put your thumb here and then slide up like this, and then a green arrow does it, and then it's and then I'm like, oh, okay, I'd like to try that. Then it's like swipe right to see the next thing. I'm like, no, I want to try it.
They made that in 1 hour. Some intern made that real quick.
Yeah, I think gestures, for the record, I think gestures are our mistake. I think, and we were talking about that with Brandon on launch day. And so sadly, we recorded our impressions of BlackBerry 10, and we couldn't upload the video for certain technical issues.
Oh, no.
It was really disappointing. But the thing is, I think gestures are our mistake. I love gestures on OS 10, but they're optional. You're not forced to use them.
Yeah. I don't think it's a mistake. I really don't. I just think that it's not, in its launch iteration, it's not consistent enough, and it's going to be very difficult to educate the customer on, and that's the problem.
I think that one gesture should be basic, like going home or turning the phone on, and then the UI should be filled with arrows, and then people could just gesture if they want or use the arrows.
Well, going home is pretty consistent. Like from anywhere in the OS, you can swipe up from the bezel on the bottom to go back to the home screen. So there is that, at least.
Yeah.
But there needs to be more consistency introduced. Yeah. But anyway, I don't know. We have a ton of content coming on BlackBerry. Like really a lot. I think we have a lot more to do. Don't worry. The next time we compare BlackBerry to Windows Phone, I will remember that you can search for apps in Windows Phone, by the way.
It's
oh, my God.
Yeah, the only thing is, why were you going to search for apps if you weren't going to find any?
Oh,
they see me trolling. Yeah, all right. So
by the way, I feel like a kid in a candy store with Windows Phone 7.8 because Spotify works on it.
What?
Yeah.
Of course it does, because it's 7. Right.
Yeah, it's based on 7, and all the 7 apps work on it, and Spotify's working. So I'm like a kid in a candy store right now.
I don't want to talk about that at all. That frustrates me to no degree. Every time I pick up my Windows Phone and I'm like, I love almost every part about you, and then I can't use Spotify, and I'm like, get out of my face. Go over there with the other Instagram-less devices. Can we? I could talk about BlackBerry all day, but we should probably move on to other platforms. Do you guys agree? Do you have anything else in closing thoughts on BlackBerry?
Well, actually, I just I'd like to get Jaime and I started to do this, and then we ran into a problem. I'd like to get a prediction from all of you about what we're going to be talking about in a year from now. If BlackBerry will be like Windows Phone is today, gaining momentum, or if people will have not received it very well.
Wow. I think that depends on. I think that ultimately depends on whether RIM is able or BlackBerry is able to survive long enough to make it to this time next year, and if it is not hardy enough to survive, if it gets snapped up by somebody else, then whether that acquiring company is willing to continue with this platform. So if that is the case, if whoever acquires them, if that happens, is willing to keep pushing BlackBerry into the market, or if RIM survives and they're willing to keep pushing BlackBerry into the market, which obviously they are, then yes, I think this absolutely has a chance of still being around in a year and fighting the good fight against Windows Phone. If they run into problems where they can't scale effectively, or if they run out of money and they miss a cycle like Palm did, then it'll be Palm all over again.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
You've got a good point. I mean, this could be like the Palm story all over again.
And I don't want it to be, because that was a horrible, horrible experience for everyone involved.
For you,
yeah.
For me especially. Yeah.
I don't know. My predictions are that BlackBerry has better chances of succeeding than Windows Phone. And I do believe that this is the next underdog. And, at least in emerging countries, there is so much of a fan base already for BlackBerry that there is a lot of potential for the platform to strive. I feel that, sadly, Windows Phone is not going to be there yet. I feel that they're still running over excuses. So for me, BlackBerry is the next underdog.
And I disagree with Jaime. I think Windows Phone will continue to be this third place underdog, because I feel that Windows Phone finally has momentum.
Yeah.
They're selling a lot of Lumias. You've got multiple hardware partners making devices. This BlackBerry thing, you're never going to see an HTC or Samsung BlackBerry. So they've always got that. And, the only company that I can think of that can pull off making their own hardware and software is Apple.
Well, that's the thing. BlackBerry pretty much taught them how to do that.
Right. So, I think just looking at the facts of the situation and looking at how it feels, Windows Phone is not going anywhere. Like, Windows Phone has a lot of momentum, as you just said, Brandon, and also Microsoft is completely unwilling to let that just go by the wayside. I mean, they're going to just keep their foot on the gas until Windows Phone is out there. And on the other side of things, you have BlackBerry with far fewer resources and a much more precarious situation as a company, but with this fierce thing where even Torsten Heinz, who doesn't express emotion, I don't think, like, ever, was like, saying things like, this isn't the finish line, this is the starting line, and we could have gone with another platform, but instead we decided to just stay the course and do our own thing. And I mean, there's fierce determination at the new BlackBerry, I think, to make this work. So you have these two platforms vying for the third place spot that are going to collide, and it's not going to be an uninteresting show. It's going to be really incredible. I think in a year we stand a pretty good chance of seeing these two really in a heated battle.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it was fun talking about BlackBerry for a full hour and 5 minutes. Let's
Let's see if we can blaze through some of this other stuff, because there has been other news. I haven't read any of it until this morning because I've been too busy in Toronto. But this is some cool stuff. I guess Samsung is teasing a Super Bowl ad for Sunday.
I was flipping through YouTube last night and I saw that video come up, and I happily watched that entire advertisement because it was funny, and it was also a little frustrating because it's like, you guys are going to just talk about the Note 2 at the Super Bowl, aren't you? And that's what's going to happen. But the ad was funny with Seth Rogen and that other dude.
I was cracking up. It was really funny.
Frickin' Paul Rudd, like the best comedic actor ever. I love him. I still have to watch the ad. I'm not going to lie to you. I haven't had time to watch a commercial, but I'm glad to hear it's cool. I'm annoyed that, it's probably going to be pushing an old product, but not an old product, but, not one of their newer ones. We'll have to wait until Sunday to see. If you're not an American listener, you probably are still aware that the Super Bowl is a massive slot for ad pushes, and this is going to be huge. With the amount of resources Samsung throws into their marketing, though, I have to say that, like, I'm excited to see the commercial or whatever, but I'm getting a little tired of Samsung saturating the airways. I feel like Tony, like 2 months ago, where he was like, I will not buy a Samsung device because I'm tired of seeing their billboards.
Because I already have one for free.
I feel a little like Tony. I'm like, I'm getting tired of seeing. I mean, literally, it's everywhere. Everywhere I go.
I like marketing saturation. I love when a company knows how to put a brand in style.
And they do.
I have a lot of admiration for good marketing creativity. And I feel that Samsung is doing it. I think that they're really killing it with their ads. I mean, I think their marketing firm should be commended.
I think creativity is not really the right word. I agree their marketing firm should be commended, but these are not the most creative ads. Like, phone, tablet, the best of both.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, creativity can be so many more things than just art. It could be a compelling way to make people laugh,
sure.
With a stupid ad that only lasts 30 seconds.
Well, yeah, but none of them make me laugh. I guess it's maybe just a taste thing where it's like
I
the
love
stupid
the Santa
Apple
Claus
attack
Claus
ads.
thing.
Oh God, I hate that. I'm like, Samsung, seriously? Like, this is the thing? This is what you're doing now? You're like, you're like promoting sexting. Like, I have nothing against sexting, but it's like, wow, all right, way to be weird, Samsung. Thanks for making me feel a little dirty and awkward. Anyway, blah 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 blah. Let's talk a little more about Samsung because they have bought a stake in Wacom, the company that makes awesome pressure-sensitive art pads and the digitizer within the Galaxy Note, the Galaxy Note 2, and the Galaxy Note 10.1, and presumably the Galaxy Note 8. All the Galaxy Notes.
I can't wait for the Galaxy S3 to get an S Pen.
Ugh. Why? Really?
I'd be willing to carry that thing, somewhere. I love the Galaxy Note. It's currently my daily driver, and I just, it's funny because I have the Galaxy
Note 2,
S3
right?
there, and I just cannot go back to the Galaxy S3.
Right, because it
stupid
feels
things
small.
that S Pen does are just like, man, it really adds value to the phone.
Here's a typical conversation I have with someone. Hi, how are you? Good. How you doing? Good. What phone do you use? I'm using the Note 2. Yeah? You ever use that S Pen? No.
Really?
But I'm glad I have it.
Oh.
But I don't use it.
It's funny because I was sitting at Dunkin' Donuts today with the BlackBerry Z10, and at one point I went to pull out the S Pen. Because I'm so used to using the Note 2, and I'm not like I use the S Pen all the time, but I do use it when I'm sitting there and I have both hands available. The S Pen is really good for scrolling because you can just hover over the bottom of the screen.
It is awesome, and it's funny, but I already figured out how to write on this thing.
No. No one knows how to write on a Note 2.
Thing.
No
it's
way.
Stupid. I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm doing it.
Well, this is cool. We have the whole spectrum. We have me who uses the S Pen infrequently, Brandon who's like just not even what, and Jaime is like, yeah, man, I wrote my grocery list on this. It's like, that's cool.
I am serious. I mean, I like it. It's something nice to have. It adds value, and I'd rather have it than not have it.
Yeah. I guess you're not wrong. I guess your opinion is not wrong.
Yeah.
What's so funny about this red flashing light is you really can't ignore it. Like, I just keep getting derailed because the BlackBerry light keeps going off.
Just turn it over, right?
Yeah, I don't want to. It's so pretty. Anyway, so it's cool that Samsung has bought this stake in Wacom because, I mean, what does this mean for the future here? I mean, it still works. It's like Steven's story says it works out to a nearly $60 million investment. Which is like peanuts for Samsung, but that's significant.
Well,
That
just
means
think
that
about it. They want to make it exclusive to them.
Sure.
Yeah, that's the exclusivity.
Right. So is that is that the most significant takeaway here? Is that meaning that like all these competitors that are trying to ride the Note's coattails and come out with 6-inch plus phones are going to have to find another way to differentiate because they're not going to be able to do it with the stylus unless there's another company that makes an excellent pressure-sensitive digitizer that can be incorporated into a beautiful display.
Right.
Which I don't know about. Yeah,
right. It's a competing thing. I mean, Apple bought liquid metal. We still don't know what they're going to use it for, but they bought it.
Did they? Wait, what's liquid metal? Why am I
it's a special type of metal that's as strong as aluminum, but it's lighter.
Oh, so it's like what Nokia is doing with that other weird material, right?
Yeah. They bought the whole company. They just want it for themselves.
Yeah.
We still haven't seen a device use it. Probably the iPhone 6. You never know, but that's what they do. They buy these really unique things like Siri because they don't want anybody else to grab them.
Right, and it makes sense. I mean, competitively speaking, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's just keep rolling on with the Samsung stuff. We are hearing a rumor that there might not be an official Unpacked event at MWC. Do we think this has any credence?
Well, it didn't happen last year as well.
They didn't have an official event?
It'll most likely be that way. I mean, Samsung wants their own show, and it makes sense. You know, last year we were really underwhelmed by really mid-tier phones being launched.
What do you mean?
A couple of really bad tablets.
Come on,
that's just the way Samsung is now.
They had the Galaxy Beam there, brother. Come on now.
God, man. You know, the girl was like, I am sorry, but the booth that we used to demo the Galaxy Beam is currently being used. And I'm like, oh, so that thing can't illuminate the wall? And she's like, no, you need to be in a low light situation. And I'm like, let's move on.
You're like, all right, let's
that
go.
Galaxy Beam, the projector phone is something that it's just no, it's not.
No,
it's just
I remember I was telling a friend of mine, he was like, oh, have you seen that Galaxy Beam? It just arrived at a store next, there's this store here, and it just arrived, and it's really cool. And I'm like, just imagine yourself for a minute talking to your friends and trying to show them something on the wall, but then having to tell them, okay, let's go to a dark room. It's like,
no.
That is not going to sound right.
So, it's true. But it was confusing to me because Samsung was willing to have a giant event at CES for their TVs, but they're not willing to have any kind of event for the Note 8, which we're pretty sure is going to drop at MWC. I don't know.
That's a good point.
I guess
that's a good point.
We'll find out. We're now in the same month.
Out.
Yeah. One thing that will be revealed at MWC, everyone hold on to your hats, is the ZTE 5.7-inch Grand Memo.
Finally, the Grand Memo.
God, I've been waiting for this forever.
What is ZTE, by the way?
It's that feeling you get in your stomach when you eat too many beans.
It's like Z. You go Z. Okay, right.
Yeah.
But, we played with some of the Grand line at CES, and some we liked some of what we saw there with the Grand S, not the Grand King S, as what's her name?
I think that's the only part you liked about it. The fact that you were cracking up about that for the rest of the afternoon.
She tricked us. She really did.
I don't think she had the wherewithal to trick us.
What was her name?
I keep forgetting. It was like Sapphire or
Saffron rice?
or something like that. Anyway, So whatever. Everyone is. I think ZTE is entering the race to build the next not very good phablet. Right. We have the Ascend Mate. We have the Grand. We have Sony's rumored monstrosity with its digitizer photo.
Rumored monstrosity.
Yeah, man. I mean, none of this is going to be a note killer. Nothing, as we just talked about with this kind of Wacom thing. Unless companies find a way to differentiate based on something other than size, you can build a phablet. Fine, build a giant phablet. That's cool, but it has to have something else to set it apart, even if it is innovative multitasking. That would actually make a lot of sense.
My 12-year-old son was like, man, you look really ridiculous putting that Galaxy Note 2 on your head. So can you imagine doing that with, the 6-inch?
Yeah, the 6.1 inch.
It's like, God, seriously, it's just, we'll pull a Tony there, doing that with the iPad.
Oh, yeah, with the iPad. So, okay, whatever. Let's move on from that. There's also, on the opposite side of the spectrum from SoundWise, there's this HTC Mini.
Oh, God.
I love Steven's headline here. The HTC Mini is a great idea that will be mocked to death.
And he's right. He's right. I mean, who's going to buy a phone for his phone? Seriously.
No one is going to use that. It's unless you're inside of a room where no one else is.
Okay, so here's the deal.
No one in the Western
third world
world.
countries like the one I live on, theft is so common here that I would gladly have an HTC Mini and pull it out. But then, it's going to be like,
so
there'll come a point where you're just like, well, I've been pulling out my iPhone 5 ever since it was launched, and I haven't gotten mugged yet. So,
right. So
why do I need a Mini? You're going to need to be mugged in order to really want to start using that thing.
If you're not familiar with the Mini, it is an accessory, a Bluetooth accessory for a smartphone that looks like a wireless home telephone from 1996, except shrunken down to a very small size. It's got a keypad on it. It's got a little screen, and it's basically just a Bluetooth accessory for your phone. So I get it. Actually, Jaime, you make a good point in the anti-theft argument. I remember about 4 or 5 years ago, somebody had built a Bluetooth headset into an old school Nokia 3390 or something like that, and was basically selling them on a made-for-you basis. So that if you bought that brand new like $600 smartphone and you wanted to keep that in your pocket, if you're in a high crime area or you don't want to see people, you don't want people to see you talking on your very expensive phone.
Yeah, but here's the thing: for those people that have not been mugged yet, this is the way it works. They stop you, they put a gun into your face,
This
and
is
they're
pleasant,
like,
by the way.
and they're like, empty your pockets. So what am I gonna do? Keep the droid DNA in like my underwear? Or what? I mean,
I don't know. See, I am Captain Two Phones, so I'm often walking around with two phones, and I often wonder about that. I'm like, what if I got held up? Could I just give him like my less valuable phone?
That's always on my mind, man. I'm like, okay, what am I gonna give him?
Right? God, this is a very morbid conversation.
But the problem is, in my country, they send you back home naked, so there's just no way for you to conceal the phone, especially if it's a phablet. There's like really no cavity in your body to actually hold that.
Tips on being mugged from the Pocketnow Weekly podcast. You're welcome.
He's like, hey man, what are you so happy about? And you're like, no, that's just my Note 2 in the pocket.
It's vibrating.
It's just my S Pen. Believe me, it's
your S Pen or your A Pen.
Hey, my C Pen. Oh God, the C Pen. It's such an awful thing.
No comment.
What was? Oh yeah, that's the dumb pen.
That
right?
awful capacitive pen from Samsung for like $30. Yeah. Let's close out Android because there's this beautiful frickin' unicorn phone called the Nexus 4, which I don't really, we've talked it to death, but it's white. There are many more shots now of this white Nexus
very, very pretty.
4.
Are they going to actually sell it?
I don't know. Nobody knows.
No, and I mean, are they actually going to sell it?
They're
actually sarcastic because
well, it's available
the black one, they still haven't figured out how to sell.
No, they got it. They got it available. It's been available for like a whole day now. Like that's a world record. Yeah, this is if you're not seeing the photos, you should look at them of the Nexus 4 in white because it almost single-handedly like changes my opinion on it. Not that I think the black one is ugly, but I would almost be able to put up with no LTE for the white one of these.
Yeah, I like the white one too.
Yeah. There's probably more Android news, but we have to keep moving. You want to go into Windows Phone 8 here and talk about our favorite tablet?
Ooh.
So what's nice about going into this story, which is titled Surface RT Return Rate Reportedly Very High, is that if you skip the body of the story and go right down to the comments, as many Windows Phone champions do, you can read the outrage and the bubbling fury of these extremely defensive and angry people who always comment on Windows Phone stories, and then you can see all the upvotes they get from their cronies. I'm going to write a piece soon about how you are ruining Windows 8 and Windows Phone for me and for Microsoft. You overly aggressive commenters, and I don't like you at all.
Did you guys see the comments on the post that I did of the Surface Pro?
I didn't even bother. I didn't
it's the
have my
64 gig version, but all you get is 24 gigs available.
Yeah, well, there's no sense in reporting on the facts.
No, right, but I got like 100 comments of people that were like, "Oh, they were trying to defend the undefendable." It's like, yeah, but what's wrong with 24 gigs? And I'm like, I could buy a fully fledged MacBook Air for $100 more and get 59 gigs of storage available and not 24. So like, yeah, why don't you just start removing the bloatware? And I'm like, well, what's the point then? I mean, what's the point of having to remove stuff?
Yeah, so this is entirely true. And I'm sure we will talk about this next week because I think this editorial will go up next week sometime. And Brandon, I'll probably run it by you first. Yeah. So anyway, the point is this. The Surface RT return rate has been reported to be very high by CNET. This was via PC World.
Yeah, PC World.
And there's some suggestion. The actual number of shipped Surface RTs looks to fluctuate between 900,000 and 1.25 million. But the actual sell-through might be significantly lower, around 700,000, because of a very high return rate. And that's not about the hardware; it's about the software. Is what this story tells us. Now, Jaime, we know how you feel about this. I understand exactly how you feel about this story. I want to know if Brandon is surprised by this. If it's true,
I bought a Surface RT, I would.
If you bought
it very quickly.
If you bought it, yeah.
And I think a lot of other people are doing the same thing.
Yeah. I don't think I would have kept a Surface RT in its current state. Whereas. Just to draw a quick parallel to BlackBerry, not that I want to keep talking about it, but if I bought a BlackBerry in its current state, I could forgive the errors that it brings aboard with its 1.0 kind of product. With Windows 8, I'm not sure I could forgive the lack of functionality that I find in it for my needs. So I would probably have been one of the returners as well. And but I mean, Jaime, you would have kept it and bought 4 more, right?
Oh yeah, I would have definitely. I need these like car cleaners very bad. Like, no, I find it a complete irony. I mean, Microsoft is a software company. How is it that they make these? They make this really cool hardware on the Surface, and then the software sucks.
Right.
How is that possible?
I was at a Staples the other day. I was looking at the new spread of Windows 8 and Office 365 stuff, which is all very interesting. Then I see the Surface, and I'm reminded of how absurd some aspects of it are. Like, for example, they had the touch cover. And that's good, so people can type. But $150, and then they had different colors of the touch cover for $120. It's so overpriced. And then I looked at the prices of like Windows. Windows 8 is like in the hundreds now, like $199 or something. After the discount is over, when it was previously $40, and then Office is like $160 or something, and Microsoft just has the wrong idea about pricing and what people are willing to pay, and they're going to figure it out very quickly in an age when OS 10 is like $19 and where people are switching to Google Docs. It's easier than ever to say no to Microsoft Office today because there are so many alternatives. This is the time when they need to get real on pricing, not only for Office and Windows, but for a touch cover that.
That's a really good point. I have not often thought about how price factors into all this, and you are absolutely correct. I mean, we see what happens to tablets that enter the market overpriced. I mean, they're very, very quickly discounted, and has the Surface seen its big discount yet, or no?
No.
It's close to getting there. I mean, just think about it. How many Android tablets survived before the Kindle Fire came out and dropped everything to $200?
Right.
Really, until Microsoft.
And the Android market is flooded with overpriced Android tablets too. I mean, still they've tried to learn their lesson, but look at companies like Toshiba, where it's like, yeah, we got this awesome 7-inch tablet, which legitimately really is awesome, and this AT270 or whatever. It's only like $500.
But then you still have Microsoft ads that are they're like, oh, this is a delicious clicking noise that you get from the touch cover and the Surface, and you're like, man, these guys really don't get it. These guys really just don't get it. Starting from marketing to their own products.
Yeah. It goes back to that discussion about the introductory commercials to the Surface were all about clicking in, like this click thing. Like, who cares about that? People care about what the thing actually does, and I guess they don't really want to talk about it because it doesn't do anything. It runs Word and PowerPoint in this fake Windows environment and gives you access to a library of the smallest app store ever, although maybe it'll get better.
So I think that I hear the tanks rolling around the corner, and I think some people are getting ready with rocket-propelled grenades outside my window. So we should probably.
No, I am here. I'm the one that you're going to propel your rockets to.
So listen, let's talk about something a little bit more positive on the Microsoft side. And this, by the way, this made me feel really warm inside. Google has extended. Google announced that like months ago that it was going to terminate Exchange Active Sync support for Windows Phone devices, which would have completely eviscerated Contact Sync and Calendar Sync, and also would have relegated Gmail to IMAP on Windows Phone devices. Well, it has extended that. On January 31st, which was yesterday, I guess, Google announced that the extension will go until July 31st.
Yeah.
Which means that Microsoft now has time to bake these open protocols like CalDAV and CardDAV into Windows Phone 8 in a future update, which will preserve this syncing ability. Now, I was guys. I mean, like the Lumia 920 is one of my daily drivers. By the way, commenters, I use a Windows Phone as a daily driver. Shut up. Anyway, that I use this, and I was petrified because I also am very invested in the Google ecosystem. So I'm like, I can't. I'm not going to be able to deal with this. I mean, the minute I switch phones to another Windows phone, I'm going to lose all this stuff. So I'm very pleased, as I'm sure many people are, about this extension. I wonder what went on in like backdoor deals to get this done. I'm sure Microsoft had to do something real nice for Google. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they probably had to cough something up.
Yeah, here's what happened. They said, "Yo, how about a bunch of cash?" They're like, "All right."
I wonder if it was that simple.
I don't know. I have this theory where I feel that Apple and Google, they hate each other, but they get along better than they do with Microsoft. And I just feel that they are just doing everything in their power to destroy the competitive side of Microsoft. They're doing everything they can to pull the rug from their floor, and it's just evident. It's really working. And just think about it. I mean, Microsoft is pretty much getting a little breath of their own money because they did that. Google comes up with their Google search, and then comes Microsoft with Windows Live Search, and everything that everybody has ever done, Google, Microsoft has wanted to compete. And so I feel that it's fine that they're doing this to Microsoft.
Well, doesn't that make it very confusing that Google actually kind of relented on this? Like, I feel like Microsoft really must have come at them aggressively with some kind of offer, because Google was like had its feet set in the mud. Like, it was like, no, we're not doing this. Like, even 2 weeks ago, Microsoft comes out with this press statement. They're like, we're very surprised about this. We wish we could have worked with Google to preserve this. Like, it seemed like there was no hope whatsoever. Whoever pulled this deal out deserves to get a week off, I think, because this is going to really help Windows Phone in the short term while Microsoft works on implementing this CalDev and CardDev support. Or you can always switch to Outlook.com, which I will not be doing, but there's a very helpful link to Adam Lane's story on our site in this news post. I have no interest in having an Outlook.com email address, but that is just me.
Yeah, that's almost as uncool as having a Hotmail email.
I was just going to say,
it's like when everybody's
so
like,
lame.
"Oh, you don't get Spotify, but there's Windows Live, there's Xbox Music."
Right.
I mean, you don't get Instagram. Oh, but we've got these camera filters. I'm like, who has ever told you that I want an alternative to Instagram?
I know. I want Instagram.
I want Instagram, not the alternative.
So
Seriously.
let's talk about a platform that has Instagram and that has every other app under the sun. We have news out of the iOS camp for the first time in a while. I feel like I was like, it's going to be another podcast where we don't talk about Apple at all. But no, there's some stuff here. There's the iPad, the iPad 5 may have had its back leaked. Has this been debunked yet, or is this still maybe a rumor?
Even if that is not it, that is it. That is exactly what an iPad 5 is going to look like.
Yeah, this is from 9 to 5 Mac, and it looks like an iPad mini blown up to full-size iPad proportions.
It doesn't look jagged. I think that thing is not a Photoshop thing, and it looks really cool, and I want it.
If it's a Photoshop thing, like with this masking tape on it, like somebody did a really good job on a Photoshop. But I don't think it is either.
No.
I keep saying this. It's a sad time for the iPad because you've got the bigger iPad, which is like a tank, and it hurt. It's painful to use. And then you've got the iPad Mini, which has this low res display, and it's painful to use. I mean, it's just
there's no good choice in iPad right now if you're a detail oriented person, right?
I am sorry. I am a high resolution man these days. I have a Retina display MacBook Pro, an iPhone 5. Every single phone that I have is 720p, and as much as I love the design of my iPad Mini, I do not use it.
Really?
I hate. Because I have become spoiled by Retina displays.
Yeah, it's tough to use. It really is.
Yeah.
That's why I give it to my wife.
Well, if wow,
you gave the what color is that? The copper colored iPad to your wife.
She doesn't even appreciate the bronze. Like
bronze, yeah.
Only I can appreciate the bronze like it deserves to be appreciated. Thanks, Anno Style.
Oh, shout out to Anno Style. Today's episode of the Pocketnow Weekly is brought to you by Anno Style. It's not, by the way. It's not. We don't have a sponsor for the podcast. Let's talk more. So if that's the iPad 5, that'll be pretty cool. Moving on. On the opposite side of the spectrum completely is this budget iPhone that keeps getting frickin' rumored and which I could not be less interested in. Do you think it's bogus?
I don't think it's going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
It's not.
It's not going to happen. I mean, just it's not going to happen. No. I mean, the iPhone 5 is going to be the next budget iPhone as it's always been. Exactly. I mean, Apple is not going to dilute their market share. They're going to keep doing what they do.
All right. So this is the common wisdom, okay? And I completely agree, and I right. But I spent that 9-hour drive to Toronto listening to podcasts talking about Apple's earnings. And Apple generated umpteen billions of dollars like it always does, and it's sold record numbers of units, and it is, by all measures, a very healthy, an exceedingly healthy company, an insanely healthy company, unless you are a stock trader, in which case, because Apple missed its target.
Well, it missed
the
predictions target, not their
target. The prediction, exactly. And so this is why I hate talking about finance. This is why I don't want to get into that at all. But this is exerting a little bit of pressure on Apple right now, I think, from a public perception sense at least, because people who don't follow technology, like I'm talking to my dad a couple days ago, and I'm like, yeah, blah blah blah, technology, and Dad's like, oh yeah, Apple took a big hit, huh? And I'm like, oh, did they? And then I looked and I'm like, oh yeah. So this is going to put a little pressure on Apple, and it actually is. It speaks to the fact that the company has lost a little bit of its momentum. And so I wonder if any of those pressures will drive it to do something like a budget iPhone at some point. What do you guys think? I mean, that'll be a low-margin device, so they won't make as much money on it, but I wonder if that would be something where, I wonder, what do you think would happen? What do you think the market would do if Apple came out and announced, we are, in fact, making a low-budget iPhone, here it is? Do you think they'd lose it?
Not their speed.
Okay, listen, they've had the opportunity to build budget computers for the past decade.
And they have not.
They have, I remember, Molly Wood from CNET once asked, Steve Jobs, she was like, oh God, these Android phones and these cheap Windows computers are really killing your market share. And he was like, yeah, but we don't ship junk.
Right.
That was his response to her. We don't ship junk. We build products that we're proud of, and this is what we do. And whoever's willing, we sell high end. That's us. It's like trying to get BMW to build something cheap. It's just not going to happen. They'll dilute their brand impression into something cheap, and Apple's not going to do that.
And that's been the consistent counter argument, and I completely agree. Steve Jobs is no longer there. I think Tim Cook does have I think the company is still going in the same direction Steve Jobs was leading it, which is nice. But
I'll give you a perfect example. Right? Okay, so the Kindle Fire comes out for $200, and the whole market went crazy because a $200 tablet is something they had never seen. And did Apple pull out the iPad Mini immediately for the same $200? No. And even when they pulled it out, they didn't make it the same price.
No, but they arguably, and I think it is a much better product than the Kindle Fire, but...
Oh, yeah, but here's the deal. But they didn't go for the same cheap price. The point being is competition is not going to drive Apple to do something cheaper.
Well, but the iPad Mini, you could argue, is a lower-end device than we've come to expect from Apple, just in the screen itself. I mean, the screen is... And I know they were backed into a corner on that with developer concerns and stuff and whatever, but it's not, it's not a high-end... It's not necessarily a very high-end Apple device that we've come to expect. So,
and you want to know the reason why I'm never buying an iPad Mini again?
Yes, I do.
I go to coffee shops, and obviously people are there with their kids, and so you've got the father with the big iPad, doing his thing, and you got his kid with an iPad Mini, and I'm like, oh God, I look so cheap. I look so cheap. I'm never doing this again.
It's like when I walked around town with the Veer for 2 months. I had the dainty phone, and I'd walk into a room where everybody had their Evos, and I'm like, hey guys, and I'd pull out my 2.8-inch Veer.
No.
Yeah. Well, they're doing something right because the tablet market has grown 75%, and Apple is still leading. It sold 22.9 million units in the fourth quarter of 2012. And I think that's counting all iPads, according to this story, unless I'm reading it wrong. Because there's a lot of percentage points and numbers in here and stuff like that. But Samsung, though, so Apple grew 48% over the same quarter of the previous year in tablet shipments, but Samsung grew 263% year over year, probably because they finally started making tablets people were interested in. Or Android.
You think that I still don't see anybody with a Galaxy Tab?
Me either. Which
Galaxy
and this is why it's confusing to me because they've shipped 8 million tablets. So I don't know. We're talking in the chat. We're trying to do a little time management, and I meant to reply to Brandon's message with okay, but instead I replied 8 minutes, which I think it is a mix between 8 million and okay. I don't know.
That's so funny. But yeah, you kind of had to be there. That's
Brandon's like, I have to go in 5 minutes. I'm like 8 minutes.
Like a negotiation here. All right, I'll do 6.2 minutes.
All right, dude, give me 6.5. Give me 6.
No. That's my bottom line.
That's your bottom
6.2,
line offer?
or I'm walking now.
All right, let's talk about this last story and then let's close it out. Once again, we're going to get back to reader mail at some point, listeners, but we did have to talk about BlackBerry for an hour today because it was important. There's a 128 gigabyte iPad. And that's going to do it for the Pocketnow Weekly. No.
Overkill.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's overkill. Like, I run out of space. I have a 32 gig, and I run out of space easily. On 64, I'd probably run out. If you want a lot of movies and a lot of music, you need more space.
Not
And,
to
you know,
Brandon Miniman, is that you?
no.
Is that even possible? He would always be like, "Why do you want a 64 gig iPhone?" And I'm like, "I want it. That's the storage I need."
That was before I started syncing Spotify playlists that are like 3-4 gigabytes. But
Right.
that's nothing if you're doing a 128. The problem with the 128 gigabyte iPad is its price. It's ridiculous. It's like $1,000.
Yeah, I'll buy a MacBook Air for that money.
Yeah, it's like, who would do that? It's crazy. It's not on their website yet. It's pre-order and just like
it's for February 5th.
So in 4 days from now,
So that is a problem.
you can do it if you want to.
Yeah, like price-wise, I feel like if I was going to drop $1,000 at an Apple store or near $1,000, I would get the
4 iPhones.
Well, no, I would probably get the 11-inch MacBook Air before I got the 128 gig iPad
It's a
because
cute little guy.
it is a cute computer.
You know, I've been seriously considering that. You know, when I saw that 128 gig iPad, I was like, man, I'd rather buy a MacBook Air. And you know, the problem is, you know, I carry this 15-inch Retina display MacBook Pro, which is a $3,000 computer.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's like, you know, I would love to carry the iPad and be my coffee shop machine, but I just can't work with it. So I would rather buy an 11-inch MacBook Air and have that be my iPad, and then use the Galaxy Note as my phone, and leave the MacBook Pro here at home.
I actually bought the 11-inch MacBook Air for personal use, and I ended up returning it and getting the 13-inch because
Why?
there's something different about, like, the first of all, the touchpad is about 20 to 30% smaller. The touchpad, and because of that, it feels different. Like, it's very difficult to do certain gestures because it's not big enough. And there were some other little problems that they might have fixed in the, you know, it's been a generation or two since that. But it's a cute little son of a gun.
Well,
Yeah.
it is. And, you know, I just realized that this problem that we're always complaining about large phones being the only high-end ones, sort of extends to computers, too, because it's very... Like, it's not like Apple couldn't afford to make an 11-inch MacBook Air with serious guts and, you know, capable of running stuff like Final Cut Pro and whatever.
Well, the problem is the thermal envelope of these computers.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, you can't really build a powerful computer yet on a small chassis because, you know, it'll just heat up so much it'll turn off.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, well, yeah. No, that's a good point. Speaking of heat, the BlackBerry Z10 gets very hot. That's going to do it for the Pocketnow Weekly.
Where does it get on the back?
Yeah, on the back, and especially, well, to be fair, I was stressing it. I was charging it, and I was using it for navigation. So I mean, it just blows.
How dare
up.
you?
Yeah, but we'll have more thoughts on the BlackBerry Z10 in the week ahead. But I think we had better wrap it up. Brendan, you have to go. We have business to attend to in a little over an hour. I think a little under an hour. And I think we should jet. Can I get some final thoughts from you, Jaime, or you, Brandon, or you both?
Okay, whenever they ping you for the AT&T review unit of the Z10, thank you very much. I appreciate it. You know my address.
No problem. I am getting that Q10 though. Go ahead.
So final thoughts. I'm always on the lookout for the next device or technology thing that's going to improve my life. And this BlackBerry thing has me cautiously interested. And I will absolutely be doing coverage on it myself to offer some different perspectives. Jaime sounds like he's going to be jumping in line, and we've got Michael's too. I'm a little bit more negative on it than I am more positive because I can't answer the question why BlackBerry 10, and that's my final thought. So
That's a solid final thought, and we'll look forward to revisiting this in the weeks ahead. But one thing is clear: we are absolutely going to be covering it in depth. So we have yet another platform to add to the tabs on the top of the Pocketnow homepage. Is that right?
oh.
Hi. But until that happens,
hell was that?
Oh, that was a noise that I make when I'm excited.
That's good. All right.
Let's ship out here, everyone. Thank you very much for listening, and that is going to do it for episode 029 of the Pocketnow Weekly. Find us on Twitter, please. Jaime is at Jaime _Rivera. Brandon is at Brandon Miniman. I can't talk, but you can find me typing at Captain Two Phones. You can also follow Pocketnow officially at Pocketnow Tweets on Twitter, Pocketnow on Facebook and Google+. Leave us a review on iTunes or Xbox Music, and if you have a topic, question, or suggestion for the podcast, or if you just want to say hi, we will get to your mail eventually, maybe, hopefully, at podcast@pocketnow.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Beep, beep.
Let's jump into the thoughts right here. The device.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chin stroking time.
All right, you're going to have to edit
go
that
ahead.
out. Just kidding.
Yeah.
No, don't do it. Leave it in.
I won't edit that
Let's
out.
move on.
No, that's staying right in.